this video is about. She walked into the cinema, and a rich man offered his seat, sparking romance. If this story touches your heart, please mention where you are watching from in the comments. Please like the video and share your thoughts in comments. The scent of freshly popped popcorn wafted through the air as Clara pushed open the heavy glass door of the Silver Oak Cinema. The familiar chime of the bells above the door rang out, a sound that had been a comforting constant in her life since she was a child. It was Friday night, and the dimly lit lobby was bustling with excitement, an orchestra of voices chattering and laughter echoing off the walls adorned with vintage movie posters. Clara loved this place, a sanctuary away from the chaos of her everyday life. She took a moment to let her eyes adjust before making her way to the box office. With her long chestnut hair cascading softly over her shoulders and her deep green eyes sparkling with anticipation, she felt a flutter of excitement in her chest. Clara was on the cusp of 25, and though she often felt the weight of her responsibilities as a social worker, tonight was meant for escapism. She was looking forward to the new romantic drama that had received rave reviews and promised to tug at her heartstrings. After purchasing her ticket, she glanced at her watch, realizing she had a few minutes to spare. She decided to explore the small, themed shop filled with memorabilia from classic films. As she wandered through the aisles, she lost herself in the allure of the past. Old film reels, retro candy, and worn-out yet charming film scripts. Here, time seemed to stand still, and for a moment she was transported to an era of black and white romances and grand gestures. Ah, the allure of cinema! A smooth voice broke through her reverie. Clara turned to see a man leaning casually against a shelf, arms crossed, an amused smile playing on his lips. He exuded an effortless charm, his tousled dark hair and tailored navy blazer lending him an air of sophistication. She felt a slight heat rise to her cheeks, a reaction she hadn't expected. "Isn't it mesmerizing?" she replied, returning his smile. "It's like stepping into another world. I could get lost here." "I completely agree," he said, stepping closer. "I'm Nathaniel, by the way. Pleasure to meet a fellow cinephile." "Clara." She extended her hand, and he took it with a firm yet gentle grip. Their eyes met, and she felt a sudden spark, a connection that made her heart race just a little faster. "So what's on your agenda tonight? A romantic tragedy?" he asked, tilting his head slightly, his expression teasing but genuine. "Something like that," she replied, trying to suppress a grin. "I hear it's heart-wrenching, but in a good way. I could use a good cry." "Ah, a kindred spirit. I'm all for a good emotional release," he said, his gaze lingering on her, as if he were searching for something deeper in her eyes. "Want to grab a seat together? I promise to provide a shoulder to cry on, should the need arise." Clara hesitated for a moment, her instincts urging caution. She was all too aware of the complexities of men like Nathaniel, the wealthy, suave types who made life seem effortless. But there was something refreshingly earnest in his demeanor that put her at ease. "Sure, why not?" she finally said, her heart racing at the thought of sharing a moment with someone so intriguing. As they walked toward the auditorium, their conversation flowed easily. Nathaniel spoke of his work in real estate, explaining his love for transforming old buildings into modern spaces while preserving their history. Clara shared snippets about her job, her voice lighting up as she talked about helping children in the foster care system. There was a warmth in her words, a passion that made Nathaniel listen intently, his interest evident. "You're doing such important work," he said, his tone sincere. "I can only imagine how challenging it must be." "It has its moments, but it's rewarding," Clara replied, feeling a sense of comfort in his attentiveness. "Every small victory counts." They settled into their seats, the theater illuminated only by the soft glow of the screen and the flickering lights overhead. The previews began playing, but Clara found it hard to focus. Instead, she was acutely aware of Nathaniel's presence next to her, the way he leaned forward slightly, his arm brushing against hers. It sent a shiver of electricity through her, igniting a warmth that spread through her entire being. As the film began, the emotional depth of the story unfolded on the screen, and Clara quickly became absorbed in the characters' struggles. She gasped at the dramatic turns, feeling her heart ache for the protagonist's heartbreaks and triumphs. She stole glances at Nathaniel, seeing his reactions mirrored in her own. His brow furrowed during tense scenes, laughter erupting at moments of levity. She noticed, too, how he often glanced at her, as if gauging her reactions. It was an intoxicating feeling, knowing he was just as engaged with her as he was with the film. In those quiet moments, a palpable tension hung between them, their shared laughter mingling with the sounds of the movie. Halfway through, an emotionally charged scene had Clara biting her lip, suppressing a sob. Nathaniel turned to her, a playful smirk on his face. "I didn't know I was sitting next to a romantic at heart." She chuckled lightly, her cheeks flushing. "Guilty as charged, I can't help it. I've always been a sucker for a good love story." "Then you're in for a treat," he said, his voice low. "Because I have a feeling this one's going to deliver the kind of heartache that lingers long after the credits roll." Clara met his gaze, her breath hitching for a moment. There was something in the way he looked at her, an intensity that made her feel seen in a way she hadn't experienced in a long time. It was thrilling and terrifying all at once. As the plot thickened, Clara found herself leaning closer to Nathaniel, their bodies almost touching. A part of her was acutely aware of how easily the chemistry between them had sparked, how the air felt charged with unspoken words and lingering glances. She couldn't help but wonder what it would be like to get to know him outside of this cinematic bubble. The film reached its climax, and Clara felt tears brimming in her eyes. Just when she thought she couldn't hold them back any longer, Nathaniel turned to her, his expression softening. "Hey," he whispered, brushing his thumb against her hand. "It's okay to feel. That's what makes us human." His touch, though gentle, ignited a fire within her, and she looked down at their entwined fingers, his warmth enveloping her in a cocoon of comfort. "Thank you," she managed to whisper, her voice barely audible over the film's score. You just what?" he prompted, his voice coaxing her to share more. "I just feel so much sometimes, it can be overwhelming." She glanced at him, vulnerability etched on her face. "But moments like this remind me why I love storytelling. It connects us." "Exactly," he said, his voice tinged with sincerity. "Stories have a way of revealing our truths, don't they?" As the film reached its emotional conclusion, Clara found herself captivated not only by the narrative on the screen, but also by the man sitting beside her. She could sense the chemistry building, like a slow-burning flame waiting to ignite. When the credits began to roll and the theater lights gradually rose, Clara felt a pang of disappointment. The characters she had grown attached to were now just figments of her imagination, and she felt an odd sense of loss. But even more daunting was the thought of leaving Nathaniel behind. "Would you like to grab a coffee or something after this?" Nathaniel suggested, his tone both casual and hopeful, as if sensing her reluctance to part ways. Clara hesitated, her heart racing. She had been so focused on the film that the idea of stepping back into the real world felt jarring. Yet, there was something in his gaze that made her want to say yes. "I'd love that," she finally replied, a smile breaking across her face. As they exited the cinema, the night air greeted them like a balm, cool and invigorating. Clara felt a mixture of exhilaration and uncertainty. This was just the beginning, she told herself, as she walked side by side with Nathaniel under the starlit sky, each step drawing them closer to a story yet to be written. The Silver Oak Cinema faded into the background as Clara emerged onto the street, the warmth of the theater replaced by the cool night air that buzzed with the distant sounds of laughter and the low hum of traffic. Her heart raced as she walked beside Nathaniel, the thrill of the evening leaving her giddy. It felt like stepping out of a dream, and yet Nathaniel's presence anchored her to reality. "Where to?" he asked, his voice smooth and inviting. He scanned the street, searching for something that would continue their fledgling connection. "I know a great little coffee shop nearby. Open late, cozy atmosphere, perfect for discussing the film and whatever else comes to mind." "Sounds perfect," Clara replied, her smile widening. The thought of sharing a cup of coffee with him sent butterflies dancing in her stomach. She certainly couldn't remember the last time she'd felt such a mix of nervousness and excitement. As they walked, Clara stole glances at Nathaniel, taking in the way the streetlights cast soft shadows across his face. There was something genuine about him, an aura that set him apart from the other men she had encountered in her life. The easy way he engaged her, how he listened intently when she spoke, made her feel valued. But beneath that appreciation lurked a nagging voice, reminding her of the disparity in their worlds. "What's your favorite film?" Nathaniel asked, breaking her reverie. Clara pondered for a moment, surprised by how easily he had shifted the conversation. "That's a tough one. I'd have to say When Harry Met Sally**. It's classic romance with such clever writing. What about you?" Nathaniel chuckled, a low, rich sound that sent a thrill through her. "You can't go wrong with a classic. I have a soft spot for The Great Escape**. It's about hope, camaraderie, and a little bit of rebellion against the odds. Plus, who doesn't love Steve McQueen? I can see the appeal. There's something undeniably charming about a good heist," Clara said, matching his playful tone. "But I think we've established that you're more of the action hero type. I'm more of a hopeless romantic." "All the more reason for us to get along," Nathaniel replied, a glint of mischief in his eyes. "You can help me channel my inner romantic, and I'll teach you how to kick ass in life." Clara laughed, the tension that had been building between them easing into a comfortable rhythm. "Deal. I could use a few pointers on channeling my inner action hero." As they approached the coffee shop, the rich aroma of roasted beans enveloped them, inviting them inside. The warm glow of the interior was a stark contrast to the cool night outside, and Clara felt a sense of welcome wash over her as they stepped through the door. "So what will it be? The house special? Or do you prefer something a little fancier?" Nathaniel asked, glancing at the menu board hanging above the counter. "I'm a sucker for a good caramel macchiato," Clara admitted, her cheeks warming at the confession. "It's sweet and indulgent, just like my taste in movies." "Then it's settled. One caramel macchiato and something bold for me," he replied, motioning to the barista as they approached the counter. While waiting for their drinks, Clara felt a sense of anticipation bubbling within her. She was acutely aware of how Nathaniel stood close, his shoulder occasionally brushing against hers as they leaned in to hear each other better over the low hum of chatter and the whir of the espresso machine. She caught his subtle, lingering glances and found herself blushing under the weight of his attention. "So, Clara, what's your story?" he asked once they had their drinks in hand and settled into a cozy corner booth. His expression was earnest, as if he genuinely wanted to know more about her. "What do you mean?" she replied, taking a sip of her coffee and savoring the warmth that spread through her. "Your story. What brought you to social work? What makes you tick?" He probed, his eyes never leaving hers, making her feel as though she were the only person in the room. Clara hesitated, unsure of how much to share. It wasn't that she was ashamed of her past, Rather, it was deeply personal. Well, I suppose I've always had a strong sense of empathy. Growing up, I saw how difficult things could be for some families, my own included. I wanted to make a difference, to help children who didn't have the support they deserved. That's really admirable, Nathaniel said, his tone sincere. It must be difficult to carry the weight of those challenges, though. How do you cope? It can be overwhelming at times, Clara admitted, her gaze dropping to the table. But I find solace in the small victories. Each child I help is a step toward making the world a little better. That's a beautiful perspective, Nathaniel said, his voice warm. I think it's easy to get lost in the grand gestures and forget that life is made up of those little moments. Their conversation flowed seamlessly, each revelation deepening their connection. Clara felt herself opening up, revealing parts of herself she rarely shared with anyone. Nathaniel listened with rapt attention, his expressions shifting in tandem with the weight of her words. "What about you?" Clara asked, curious. "How did you end up in real estate? It seems different from what you're doing now." Nathaniel chuckled softly, the sound rich and engaging. "I'll admit, it's not the noble calling of social work. I grew up in a wealthy family, and it was almost expected for me to follow in my father's footsteps. But I found my passion in breathing new life into old spaces, transforming them while honoring their past." "That's fascinating," she said, her interest piqued. "You get to be creative while also preserving history. It sounds like an art form in its own right." "It is," Nathaniel replied, his eyes lighting up. "But there's also a business side to it that can be quite cutthroat. Not everyone appreciates the value of history, you know." "I can imagine," Clara said, reflecting on the nature of both their professions. "It's a balancing act, isn't it, between heart and practicality?" "Exactly," he said, leaning back, his gaze steady on her. "But tonight isn't about business. It's about enjoying the moment, sharing stories, and—" He paused, his eyes narrowing playfully, "watching romantic dramas that make us feel." Clara raised an eyebrow, a smile playing on her lips. "So you're saying I'm not allowed to bring up depression or trauma?" "Only if it leads to a good laugh," he replied, his face softening. "Life is too short to dwell on the heavy stuff all the time. Don't you agree?" "I suppose you're right," she conceded, laughter sparkling in her eyes. The chemistry between them felt electric, and she reveled in the warmth of their connection. Yet there was an undercurrent of vulnerability, a shared understanding that both were navigating deeper waters. As they sipped their drinks, the cafe ambience wrapped around them like a warm blanket. Clara noticed how Nathaniel would lean in closer when he spoke, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, as if they were sharing secrets amid the bustling crowd. It made her heart flutter. "I have to ask," he began, a teasing glint in his eyes. "Are you always this captivating, or is it just the magic of the cinema?" Clara laughed softly, feeling a blush creep up her cheeks. "I think it's the latter. The movies have a way of bringing out the romantic in people, don't they?" "Maybe," he mused, his tone light. "But I can't help but think you'd be just as mesmerizing in any setting." "Flattery will get you everywhere, Nathaniel," she teased, leaning slightly closer, caught in the warmth of the moment. "But seriously, you're not so bad yourself. There's something intoxicating about this evening." He held her gaze, the playful banter simmering into something deeper, something magnetic. "Then let's make a pact. No matter where life takes us from here, we promise to keep the magic alive. Tonight is just the beginning, after all." Clara felt a rush of emotions at his words, a mixture of hope and fear. What did it mean for them? As if sensing her hesitation, Nathaniel reached across the table, his fingers brushing against hers. The contact sent a jolt through her, igniting a spark that danced along her skin. "Clara," he said softly, the intimacy of his gaze drawing her in, "I know life can be complicated, but sometimes The most beautiful stories start with a single chapter. Can we see where this leads us? Her heart swelled, and for a fleeting moment the weight of her responsibilities slipped away, leaving only the thrill of possibility. She nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'd like that." And just like that, the world outside faded into insignificance as they began to write their story, one moment at a time, each word infused with the promise of something extraordinary. The soft chime of the cafe door announced new customers, but for Clara, the world narrowed to the cozy booth where she sat with Nathaniel. The steam from their cups curled upward, creating a misty veil between them that felt more intimate than the bustling cafe. Clara was acutely aware of how close their hands were, fingers barely grazing each other's, and the warmth radiating from Nathaniel was as palpable as the aroma of coffee enveloping them. "Do you ever think about how a single moment can change everything?" Clara asked, her voice low and thoughtful, the weight of her own words lingering in the space between them. "Absolutely," Nathaniel replied, his expression shifting to something more serious. "I think about it all the time, especially since I took this leap into real estate. One choice can lead you down an entirely different path. I used to follow the script set for me by my family, go into the family business, keep up appearances. But then I found this passion and it felt like I'd awakened from a dream." He paused, his eyes searching hers. "What about you?" Clara tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, considering his question. "For me, it was when I volunteered at a local shelter during college. I was assigned to work with children who were facing difficult circumstances. Some had been removed from their homes, others were just struggling to get by. It opened my eyes to the world beyond my own bubble. I never looked back after that." "Sounds like you were destined for this work," Nathaniel said, admiration evident in his voice. "Not everyone can handle that kind of emotional weight." "It's not easy, and some days are harder than others," Clara admitted. "But every time I see a child smile or I hear a success story, it reminds me why I chose this path. There's something deeply fulfilling about being a small part of their journey." "Your passion is inspiring," he said, leaning closer. "I can see how much it means to you. It's a rare quality to find in someone." His eyes held hers intently, and Clara felt as if he was peeling away her layers, revealing her truths in a way that made her heart race. "I could say the same about you," she replied softly, her cheeks warming. "The way you speak about your work, your dedication to preserving history, it's evident that you're not just in it for the profit." A smile broke across Nathaniel's face, and for a moment, Clara felt like they were the only two people in the cafe. He leaned back, fingers entwined, and let out a soft chuckle. "You know, I often find myself caught between the worlds of commerce and creativity. Sometimes I feel like an imposter in both realms." "An imposter?" Clara asked, her brow furrowing slightly. "You don't strike me as someone who lacks confidence." Nathaniel's smile faded a touch, revealing a glimpse of vulnerability. "It's easy to feel like that when you step out of the mold expected of you. I've always been seen as Nathaniel Sinclair, the wealthy heir. People often only see the surface, the success, the parties, the privilege. They don't see the doubts, the fears, and I've spent far too long trying to prove myself in the eyes of others." "That pressure must weigh heavily," Clara said, her voice softening. "But you're carving your own path now. That's what matters." He nodded, and for a moment the atmosphere shifted, a silent understanding passing between them. "The truth is," he said, breaking the stillness, "I didn't expect to meet someone like you tonight. You've reminded me of the importance of authenticity, how it can be a guiding light amid all the expectations." He took a sip of his coffee, his gaze never leaving hers. "And I have to admit, I'm enjoying every moment of getting to know you." A rush of warmth flooded Clara's chest at his words. I'm glad you feel that way, she replied, her heart fluttering with excitement. I didn't expect to feel this connection either. It's both exhilarating and terrifying. Terrifying in a good way. Nathaniel inquired, a playful smirk returning to his lips. Definitely in a good way, Clara affirmed, biting her lower lip. It feels like the start of something. Then let's embrace it, he said, leaning in slightly, his voice low and engaging. Let's not overthink this. Life is too short for that. Clara met his gaze, her breath hitching at the intensity she saw reflected back at her. She felt an electric pull, a magnetism that drew her closer, and before she could think too hard about it, she reached across the table, allowing her fingers to intertwine with his. The moment their skin touched, a jolt of warmth surged through her, igniting something deep within her core. You know, Nathaniel began, his voice barely above a whisper, I've always believed that the universe has a funny way of bringing the right people into our lives at the right time. You might be right, Clara replied, her pulse quickening as she squeezed his hand gently. But what if the timing is all wrong? What if this is just a fleeting moment? Then we'll make it a beautiful one, he countered, his thumb rubbing soothing circles on the back of her hand. Moments like these don't come around often, Clara. Let's not squander the magic. She felt her heart swell at his words, the sincerity melting away her reservations. You're right. Let's make this moment count. As they continued to talk, the conversation flowed seamlessly, punctuated by laughter and the occasional flirtatious banter. Clara found herself sharing stories from her childhood, her dreams, and the moments that had shaped her into the person she was today. Nathaniel listened intently, his eyes sparkling with interest, and she felt emboldened by the way he engaged with her narratives. Okay, so I have to ask, Clara said, her tone teasing. What's the most ridiculous thing you've ever done in the name of love? Nathaniel chuckled, the sound rich and engaging. Oh, that's an easy one. I once staged an elaborate surprise for a girlfriend in high school. I rented out our town's tiny theater and had the entire cast of our school play perform a cheesy love song just for her. It was unforgettable, he said, a hint of embarrassment coloring his cheeks. Clara couldn't help but laugh at the image of young Nathaniel trying to impress someone with such a grand gesture. Wow, that's truly romantic and a bit over the top. Did it work? Not exactly, Nathaniel said, rolling his eyes good-naturedly. She was flattered but ended up dating my best friend a month later. Lesson learned. Sometimes grand gestures are too much for the moment. Or maybe just misdirected, Clara added with a playful grin. But at least you tried. It shows your heart is in the right place. Nathaniel smirked, leaning back in his seat, obviously enjoying this exchange. And what about you? What's the most ridiculous thing you've done for love? Clara paused, a thoughtful expression crossing her face. I once wrote a series of letters to a crush, like actual handwritten letters, because I was too shy to tell him how I felt. I slipped them into his locker, and he thought someone was playing a prank on him. Nathaniel's eyes widened in amusement. That's both adorable and utterly terrifying. Did you ever confess it was you? Eventually, she said, a hint of embarrassment creeping into her tone. But by then, he was dating someone else. I still cringe when I think about it. Hey, at least you put yourself out there, he replied, admiration etched across his face. That takes guts. Clara felt a warmth spread within her, the combination of vulnerability and shared laughter forging a connection that felt undeniable. Thank you. It's not easy to share those stories, but they're a part of who I am. And they're what makes you so captivating, Nathaniel responded, his eyes shining with sincerity. Never underestimate the power of authenticity. Their conversation continued to flow, weaving tales of past romantic adventures and the lessons learned along the way. Clara was surprised by how comfortable she felt with Nathaniel, how easy it was to be herself. The hours slipped away unnoticed, and before they knew it, the cafe staff began to clean up for the night, a gentle reminder that their time was drawing to a close. "Wow, I didn't realize how late it had gotten," Clara said, glancing at her watch. "I should probably head home." "Do you have to?" Nathaniel asked, a hint of disappointment lacing his voice. "I could talk to you for hours more. This has been unexpectedly wonderful." Clara felt a pang of regret at the thought of parting ways. "I know what you mean. I've had such a great time, but reality calls." "Then let's make sure this isn't the end," he said, determination in his voice. "Can I see you again? I'd love to continue our journey." "Absolutely," Clara replied, her heart fluttering at his words. "I'd like that very much." A smile spread across Nathaniel's face, brightening his features. "How about we exchange numbers? That way we can plan our—" Clara felt a surge of warmth as she pulled out her phone, her fingers trembling slightly with excitement. The idea of continuing this unexpected connection made her heart race. She hadn't anticipated feeling this way about someone so quickly. But with Nathaniel, it felt as though the universe had conspired to bring them together at just the right moment. "Here," she said, handing him her phone, relishing the way their fingers brushed together again. "You can enter your number." Nathaniel took her phone, his warm gaze lingering on her as he typed in his contact information. "I promise I'm not usually this charming. I just can't help but get lost in the moment with you," he said, handing her the phone back. "There, you have my number now. Just don't be surprised if I start texting you like a lovesick puppy." Clara laughed, the sound bubbling up from somewhere deep within her. "I think I can handle that. Just don't send me any cheesy pickup lines and we'll be good." "Deal," he said, a smirk playing on his lips. "But I can't make any promises about randomly quoting romantic movies. It might be a little hard to resist." "Bring it on," she challenged, a playful glint in her eyes. "I'm always up for a little cinematic flair." As they stood to leave, Clara felt a twinge of reluctance. The cafe had begun to empty out, leaving an intimate hush that enveloped them. She glanced outside. The night sky was a deep indigo, dotted with stars that twinkled like distant beacons. The world outside felt both enchanting and daunting, a reminder that reality awaited them. "Shall we?" Nathaniel asked, gesturing toward the door with a gentlemanly flair, his eyes sparkling with mischief. She stepped outside, the crisp air greeting her like a refreshing embrace. The night felt alive, electric with possibility, and Clara found herself stealing glances at Nathaniel as they walked side by side. He had an effortless grace about him, a confidence that was both magnetic and disarming. She couldn't help but admire the way he navigated the world, as though he held secrets that only he could unlock. "So what's next for you?" he asked, breaking the comfortable silence that had settled between them. "Any exciting plans for the weekend?" Clara pondered for a moment. "Not much, really. I have a few meetings lined up for work and I'd like to catch up on some reading. What about you?" "I was planning to spend some time at the new property I bought downtown," Nathaniel replied, his excitement palpable. "I'm looking to renovate it and turn it into a mixed-use space. I love the idea of revitalizing a part of the city while creating something meaningful." "That sounds incredible," Clara said, genuinely intrigued. "What kind of renovations do you have in mind?" "Well, the building has a lot of character, but it's in need of some serious love," he explained, his passion igniting as he spoke. "I'm thinking of preserving the original facade while modernizing the interior. I want to create a space that combines history with contemporary living, something inviting, where people can connect." Clara's heart swelled at his vision. "That sounds like a beautiful blend. You have such a unique perspective on things. You see potential where others might see obstacles. I've learned that from my work and honestly from people like you, Nathaniel said, his voice sincere. I admire your dedication to helping children find their footing. It's not something everyone would do. She smiled, warmth creeping into her chest at his praise. Thank you. I just believe that everyone deserves a chance to thrive, no matter their circumstances. As they walked, their conversation shifted to lighthearted topics, favorite books, music, and the quirks of their childhoods. Clara found herself opening up effortlessly, sharing anecdotes that made her laugh and made Nathaniel chuckle in turn. With each story, she felt the walls around her heart begin to dissolve, replaced by an inviting sense of warmth that enveloped them as they strolled. "Okay, tell me something surprising about you," Nathaniel challenged, a playful grin on his face. "Something that would make me rethink my whole assessment of Clara, the social worker." Clara smirked, her mind racing. "All right, but you have to promise not to judge me," she replied, holding his gaze with a hint of mischief. "I have an obsession with cheesy rom-coms. I've seen *10 things I hate about you more times than I'd like to admit." "I won't judge," he said, raising an eyebrow. "In fact, I think that's endearing. I have a soft spot for classic rom-coms too. There's something about those feel-good stories that just pulls at the heartstrings." "See, I knew you had a romantic side," Clara teased. "What's your favorite?" "Notting Hill*, he said without hesitation. "Hugh Grant and Julia Roberts, what's not to love? The whole ordinary guy meets famous actress trope is brilliant." "Agreed," Clara said, her enthusiasm bubbling over. "And the dialogue is just so clever. It's one of those films that makes you believe in love and serendipity." Nathaniel's expression softened as they paused on the corner of the street, leaning against a lamppost. "You know, Clara," he said, his tone taking on a more serious note, "I believe that stories like that can exist in real life too. Sometimes we just have to be open to them." Her heart skipped a beat as he held her gaze, the moment stretching as they stood there, the world fading around them. "Are you saying you believe in love at first sight?" Clara asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm not sure about love at first sight," he replied, a hint of mischief returning to his eyes. "But I do believe that sometimes a connection can feel like fate, don't you think?" Clara swallowed, feeling as though the air had thickened between them. "It really does," she admitted softly, "and tonight has been a little magical." Their eyes locked, and for a moment, the distance between them felt charged with an electric current. The air was thick with the unspoken, the potential of what could be lingering just beyond their grasp. As the moment stretched, Nathaniel's gaze softened, and he leaned in slightly, the warmth of his body radiating toward her. "Clara," he said gently, "I want you to know that I'm genuinely intrigued by you. I want to explore this connection between us." Clara's breath caught in her throat, her heart racing at his words. She felt the warmth creep back into her cheeks, her pulse quickening as she searched his eyes for sincerity. "I want that too," she finally said, her voice steady. "But I'm also aware of the realities we both carry." "Reality can be daunting," he said softly, "but sometimes we have to take that leap of faith. You never know what beautiful moments lie ahead unless you're willing to embrace them." "Wise words," Clara said, her heart swelling with a mix of excitement and apprehension. "I just hope we're both ready for what that means." "I believe we can be," Nathaniel replied, his voice firm but gentle. "Let's take it one step at a time. No pressure, just two people exploring something special." Clara nodded, feeling the weight of his words resonate with her. "I can agree to that," she said, smiling brightly. "One step at a time." As they continued walking, the conversation flowed seamlessly, laughter punctuating the air between them. The laughter felt lighter, the connection deeper, as they intertwined their stories, slowly building something that felt like a solid foundation for what lay ahead. Eventually, they reached the corner where Clara had parked her car. She turned to face him, a mix of excitement and nervousness coursing through her. "Well, here we are," she said, her heart racing as she glanced up at him. "This is it for tonight." "Not if I can help it," Nathaniel said, his voice low and inviting. "I want to make sure I can see you again soon. How about we plan for next weekend?" "That sounds perfect," Clara replied, her heart soaring at the thought of another evening with him. "I'm looking forward to it." "Me too," he said, stepping closer, their eyes locking once more. "And Clara?" "Yes?" she asked, her breath hitching slightly at the intensity of his gaze. He hesitated for just a moment, then said, "Don't be surprised if I text you before then. I have a feeling I won't be able to wait." A soft laugh escaped her lips as she nodded. "I wouldn't have it any other way." As they shared one last lingering glance, Clara felt a rush of hope, excitement, and anticipation for what lay ahead. With their connection blossoming amidst laughter and shared stories, she knew that this was only the beginning of something extraordinary. As she climbed into her car and waved goodbye, she couldn't shake the feeling that their journey was just taking its first steps, and she couldn't wait to see where it would lead them next.